Hello, my friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family. Well, guys, I was waiting for more than one source to say this, and now there's more than one source saying that basically Iran has fired missiles at a U.S. aircraft carrier in the Gulf. And this is out of VOP today, Voice of the People today. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard ships fired missiles at U.S. aircraft carrier John Stennis, who entered the Gulf for the first time since 2001. And the aircraft carrier entered the Gulf on Friday for the first time since the September 11th attacks in New York and Washington back in 2001. Iranian Revolutionary Guard ships were closely following the aircraft carrier and a group of ships accompanying it, firing missiles at it and flying a drone near it, the agency said. And we have a little more detail over here from the Jerusalem Post. And let me get rid of that flyer there. Okay, so again, basically saying missiles were fired at a fairly large distance from the American ship, and the Iranian vessels were carrying out a naval exercise entitled Great Prophet 12. The exercise takes place near the Straits of Hormuz. And again, the John C. Stennis is basically the first American vessel to enter the Persian Gulf since the U.S. withdrew from the Iranian nuclear agreement. And the Iranian exercise is meant to continue until Saturday evening, yet Iran threatened it might close the straits, risking the stability of the global gas market, as 1/3 of it is shipped through the straits. So, a show of power for sure. Was this trying to shoot down, or to sink one of the U.S. ships? Probably not, but definitely a show of force and trying to create a little bluster and bravado. And over here out of Newsweek, Iran to launch massive war games as U.S. aircraft carrier enters Gulf, breaking the longest absence since 9/11. So these war games are going to be ongoing. They were planned, and so if missiles were shot, apparently they were shot more as a show and not with intent to take out the aircraft carrier, which would obviously be a huge act of war, and we would have a real mess on our hands. But looking at the fact that basically we have these ships so close together, and we do have this naval exercise going on, it's definitely something to be aware of. There's so many potential trigger points right now all around us. And so we have conflicting news coming out over here on CNBC. It says Schumer, Pence, and McConnell reach deal, says Senator Corker. But then we also have other sources that are as up-to-date, if not more up-to-date, saying no deal has been reached. So right now, apparently no deal has been reached, even though CNBC was saying that there is a deal. So we shall see. They are scrambling, trying to make a deal. And Trump and the Democrats dig in as government heads for a shutdown. And what would this mean as far as some services, especially look at what we have going on around us? And a lot of things that we kind of count on could potentially be shut down or be severely hampered. And so, as this says, after the winter solstice, the number of daylight hours start to slowly increase. However, for federal employees, the days may seem long for another reason. This person's a former federal employee, worked for NASA for 12 years, and says it was one of the best experiences of their career, except dealing with government slowdowns or shutdowns. They are petty, disruptive, and never really accomplish much. There have been 20 of them since 1976, and unfortunately, as I type this, the nation is facing a holiday season government shutdown. And this one is particularly disgusting because it's a time when many of us celebrate selflessness, charity, love. With furloughs and loss of pay threatened, these actions are clearly acts of selfishness and smell of political tantrums. However, my focus herein is what a partial government shutdown means for weather operations, climate, and related sciences. So, while some agencies have been funded under previous actions, several weather-climate-focused energies would be impacted by the shutdown. They include NOAA, NASA, the NSF, and the Geological Survey. According to an article in Nature, the Environmental Protection Agency is a notable exception. It plans to use unexpired multi-year and no-year funding to keep most of its roughly 14,000 workers on the job, at least until that money runs out. For NOAA, about 50% of its workforce would be shuttered. However, the National Weather Service personnel that provide critical weather forecasts for the nation will still work. By the way, pause for a moment and think about all the ways daily activities are affected by weather. Pockets of federal personnel would also continue to monitor tsunami warning operations and some greenhouse gas monitoring activities. I still remember a government shutdown and the dedication of our federal workforce, even as they used pawns in a political chess game. And so it definitely will affect a lot of things, especially with what we have going on right now with all these, just wild earth changes that we're seeing. And many people from the last video are basically verifying that, for instance, the weather in Florida has been intense. And they can't remember seeing tornadoes this time of year, 70-mile-an-hour winds this time of year, seas that are like looking at the Gulf of Mexico and you think that you're looking at, the seas and the Pacific. Very unusual what we see going on. And one more thing, guys. Fluoridation may not prevent cavities after all, scientific review shows. Well, many of us, myself included, don't think fluoridation ever had really anything to do with cavities. And now, science is saying that. Totally. Science is saying that. So it's just hilarious now. It's amazing what's going on. We have the government acknowledging that they're going to have to spray chemtrails. And now they're basically acknowledging that, that whole idea of fluoridating water to basically, keep teeth from rotting, well, yeah, I guess we were wrong, It doesn't really work. But you know what it does do? It dumbs down the populace. It calcifies the pineal gland. It makes people more compliant. It does everything that Hitler used it for. And, so here we go. Just one more case as everything just seems to be unraveling and uncovered. And we have a distant star sending out a stellar flare so powerful it could birth planets. And astronomers have recorded a giant stellar flare emanating from a baby star way out in space, and they say this massive explosion of energy and plasma is about 10,000 times bigger than the largest flare ever recorded coming from our own sun, and it's so powerful that it could be part of the ingredients for creating brand new planets. So pretty cool, pretty exciting stuff. And we've had so much stuff being exposed to us in so many ways, from the chemtrails to the fluoride and so many other things that are just coming out. And you know what? Us conspiracy theorists, we've been right most of the time, and some will take exception with that. But, I think at least for the things that I have followed the last, 35 years or so, it seems like pretty much everything has turned out to be right, from some of the non-stick pans not being healthy, potentially cancer causing, to look over here, Oscar Mayer bacon, right? Nitrates, possibly cancer causing, red meat, possibly cancer causing. The whole fluoride thing, they're not really doing it for our teeth, they're doing it to calcify our pineal gland, so we won't be fully operational, and we'll also be more compliant and docile. Chemtrails, they're a fact, a complete fact. And they're doing it for multiple reasons, not just basically getting rid of the, buildup of heat. It's more than that. It's, again, more than that. 5G is we're going to find, we are in the process of finding that out as well. There's just one thing after another, And you know what? Conspiracy theorists, or truthers, as we're more commonly known nowadays, I think we've been right more often than we've been wrong. And some of you will disagree with that, but I think that's the case. I mean, it really seems to me to be the case. So, stand your ground, because most of the time we've been just ahead of the curve. So, my friends, as always, God bless and namaste.